Hey everyone, so I came at Jujutsu Kaisen kind of backwards. I had quickly binge watched most of seasons one and two before seeing Jujutsu Kaisen the execution in the theaters last year. The film, it worked, it made sense, told a complete story, and left me wanting more. That's what a film is supposed to do. Naturally, I assumed I could just jump straight into season three since I did my binge watch and I watched the movie, and that was all about 4 months ago. And you know what? That assumption was absolutely wrong. When I fired up season three, I felt disoriented. I recognized the characters, but the story did not connect with me back to the experience that I had in the theater. I was not just missing details, I was missing the emotional weight behind what I was seeing with the characters in season three. There was no way I could honestly review season three without having all of the characters and their storylines baked into my head. So I went back and I rewatched the entirety of seasons one and two before jumping into season three again. What became clear was that Jujutsu Kaisen Execution, the movie, works well as a standalone experience. But if you use it as your entry point into season three, or if you only did a quick binge months ago before watching the film and kind of glossed over it, the Culling Game Part One story is likely to just leave you behind. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to have that happen. So clearly, the whole point of Jujutsu Kaisen Execution was to catch up current fans who have been waiting over 2 years for season three, as well as to bring in a whole flood of new fans with a theatrical release. However, let's face it, new fans are likely to feel a bit lost if they haven't made the time to fully watch the first two seasons, especially recently. So, yes, my opinion of the theatrical release of Jujutsu Kaisen Execution has actually changed a bit. I think it's still good for new fans as kind of a taster. It's good for current fans to kind of get you up to speed. But no, it's not good enough. You have to see the first two seasons. So let me step back here just for a second and look at what Jujutsu Kaisen Execution actually did as a film to understand how that experience impacts the new season that it introduced. As I mentioned in my review of the film, it functions as a hybrid recap and a launch point for season three by compressing the Shibuya incident into a series of highlights that get folded into the opening episode of season three. It's pretty standard. Sounds normal. For longtime fans, though, that structure works because it refreshes your memory. It reconnects you with the world and it sets the stage for what's going to be happening next. However, it does not replace the story that came before. The core of Jujutsu Kaisen is long form storytelling built across two incredibly complex and thoughtful seasons before it ever reaches the Culling Game in season three. The execution film acts like a bridge, but it is not a replacement that will carry you across that gap. For returning fans, that gap might not exist. So it's just a refresher. For new viewers, you fall off the story cliff. So I went back and I rewatched seasons one and two, like I said, and really focused on those stories and characters because I really wanted to get back into those storylines. Like magic, everything in season three that had previously felt confusing clicked into place for me. This is important because it highlights a central issue with the way the story is delivered. The problem is not the story itself, the problem is the entry point, and viewers largely choose how they connect with the story. Season three also marks a significant shift in the structure and tone of the series. Before the Shibuya incident, the characters were still kind of growing together. We watched them learn and build these relationships with one another and develop as a team. There was a sense of forward momentum tied to their growth as young men and women. But Shibuya changed everything from Yuji Itadori to Megumi Fushiguro, even Nobara Kugasaki, and even Maki Zenin and Yuta Okkotsu and the others. They all crossed a line. that they can't return from. And that shift defines everything that follows in the Culling Game. They lost allies and mentors, any sense of safety. With Satoru Gojo sealed and Japan destabilized, training, it's over for them. They are now all fighting on the front lines, making that shift, both structural and emotional. This is most evident with Yuji, who carries the burden of Sukuna's destruction, knowing that while it wasn't his choice, it still was his body that killed so many people. This isn't guilt that is just going to pass quickly. It's something he internalizes and carries forward with him. That internal conflict reaches a turning point during his encounter with Hiromi Higuruma. Inside Hiromi's courtroom domain, Yuji doesn't fight the accusation, nor does he try to justify his actions. He admits guilt and accepts responsibility for something that, strictly speaking, he didn't do. That is such an important moment for both Yuji and Hiromi because it reframes the episode's entire arc. It transforms Hiromi as a character who had lost his faith in justice and humanity by forcing him to confront someone who still believes in accountability. It also defines Yuji as someone who is no longer just reacting to events. He is choosing how to carry his responsibility for them. This is where season three becomes something deeper than just a cool series of battles with incredible animated action scenes. Like with Yuji, the others go through similar transformations that feel a bit like an epic coming of age story for so many different people who take irreversible steps forward into becoming the next phase of who they are as people, not just sorcerers. At the same time, the Culling Game introduces a level of structural complexity that can be difficult to follow, especially for new viewers. There are multiple colonies, evolving rules, and a growing cast of characters, each with their own abilities and motivations. Forget the theatrical release of execution. Honestly, just throw it out. If you are not familiar with the previous seasons, it can feel like you are being asked to just track too many moving parts at once that don't cleanly fit together. But if you have really gotten into Jujutsu Kaisen as a series, it's this complexity that delivers some of the most memorable and meaningful moments from all three seasons. One of the most memorable is the introduction of Fumihiko Takaba, the comedian sorcerer. His presence completely disrupts the tone of the scene he enters as Megumi faces down two major sorcerers by himself. Fumihiko's sudden appearance in his wildly absurd costume, which is a combination of basically his birthday suit and a set of superhero tights. It's just hilarious. Plus, this costumed comedian behaves as though he has wandered in from an entirely different genre. Megumi's reaction is just priceless, but it's the shared reactions between him and the other two sorcerers that really make it genuinely funny because Fumihiko has no idea how the others are even reacting to him. He's just not paying attention to it. What's brilliant about Fumihiko is the disparity between his comic persona compared to his immense power. He has no idea what he's actually capable of doing, which creates this sense of pity in us as viewers over his unrealized potential because, hey, this guy may never see himself as anything more than a joke instead of one of the most dangerous sorcerers in Tokyo. This also reinforces the idea that power is not always expressed in predictable ways. Another standout is Yuta Okkotsu, who steals the show, in my opinion. His presence reinforces just how wide the power spectrum is among sorcerers. When he enters a fight, the dynamic, it shifts immediately because he isn't just stronger. He operates at a whole different scale than most sorcerers. There is a level of control and adaptability in his abilities that suggests a deeper understanding of the system itself. Even without going into detail, he represents a different tier of threat entirely. At the same time, the series continues to ground itself through smaller, more personal moments. Yuji's connection with Choso introduces a sense of family that contrasts sharply with the isolation that he has experienced since his grandfather died. The idea that he might not be alone carries real emotional weight. Similarly, moments tied to Megumi's past, including his connection with his father, serve to close emotional loops that have been building since earlier seasons. And we see that playing out here in the Culling Game. These are not just callbacks, these are moments of resolution that allow the characters to move forward even as they hit limits of their own strength. What ties all of this together is a central question. How much of your humanity can you hold on to when survival requires you to lose some part of it? The longer the characters remain in the Culling Game, the more they are forced to fight, to kill, and to make decisions that challenge their sense of self. Yet, what we see is not a descent into nihilism, but a struggle to preserve things like hope and love and friendship. The Jujutsu High sorcerers are not just trying to survive, they are also trying to preserve what makes them human while finding a way to unseal and save Gojo. Where season three excels is in its animation, choreography, and the thematic ambition that it has. The action remains visually striking and dynamic, and the character arcs are incredibly emotional and touching. However, the season faces some challenges because its structure is more fragmented due to so many different characters doing so many different things across so many different locations. These episodes, with fragmented action scenes that keep everyone separated, are combined with a shorter episode count that makes it feel like each character is almost operating in their own bubble rather than together as a whole. And it's the ensemble energy from previous seasons that is missing from some of these fights. You begin to feel the distribution of the story with its arcs unfolding in parallel rather than in sequence. While this doesn't break the story, it does change how it feels as a viewer. And at the end of the season, you're kind of left feeling unfulfilled. Like Hajime Kashimo, it really felt like we didn't get any dessert with season three. There is also a sense that the season ends just as it's starting to settle into its own arc. The Culling Game is clearly much larger than what we see in these 12 episodes, and while that creates anticipation for what comes next, it also leaves season three feeling incomplete. Ultimately, whether season three works for you depends on how you enter the story. For returning viewers, it is a continuation that builds on everything that came before. For new viewers entering through the theatrical film execution, it's going to feel overwhelming and disconnected. My recommendation is simple. If you enjoyed Jujutsu Kaisen execution in the theater and want to continue with the series, start from season one. It is a longer journey, but it is also a far more rewarding one. What you gain is not just context, but connection with the characters and the story. When you reach season three, with that foundation in place, you will feel fully inside the story. So, what did you think of Jujutsu Kaisen season three, the Culling Game part one? Are you a longtime fan or a new one? Let me know if you have a favorite scene or a favorite battle this season because, hey, some of them were pretty spectacular. Let me know if these 12 episodes kind of measured up as a full season for you in the comments below, and let's talk. I can't wait to talk about this one. While you're here, why not give this review a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and share with a friend who might be interested in checking out the series. That's it for now. Happy viewing, everyone. And hey, why not check out one of these other video reviews? I'll see y'all again soon. Bye for now.